Welcome back to the Wealth Clock podcast with Stephen Weinstock. I'm Stephen Weinstock. My background is single family homes, multifamily, and recently private credit debt investing through a fund, mostly in the first position liens on properties in New Jersey, where I am enjoying the non property management aspect of that investment. We are sponsored today by Cable NOI. Cable NOI will help properties that have 20 units plus get revenue from cable companies, Spectrum, Charter, AT&T, etc., Verizon. There's no wiring, there's no cost, there's no tenant interaction. They will pay you a per door fee, sometimes up to $250 per door, plus a revenue share. There is no cost ever. And all you need is the address and the unit count. And they will tell you if you are approved. CableNOI.com. Today we have the legend, Stewart Beal. He is the president of Beal Capital. He is a serial entrepreneur who began investing in real estate at 19 years old. Okay. He's founded a bunch of companies, managed more than 3,000 units, and he helped deploy over $100 million through multiple funds. Stuart, thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Okay. 19 years old. Okay. So I thought I started young. How'd you get into real estate at 19 years old?
Well, I actually started a company when I was 13, mowing my neighbors' lawns, going door to door. When I was 16, I got my driver's license. We made it an official company. We had as many as 400 customers in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And then when I was 19, I sold that business for $250,000. I got $50,000 down and $1,500 a month for 10 years approximately. And so I had $50,000. I had some other savings that I had, and I was going to Eastern Michigan University Business School, which is in downtown Ypsilanti. I met a man who owned 11 properties around Ypsilanti. He said he wanted to sell one. I evaluated all 11 of them. There was only one that had a vacant unit in it. It was a 5-unit at 15 North Hamilton, directly across the street from the business school. And so it all just came together kind of magically, where I bought the property, I moved in, I did what you call house hacking, and that's kind of how it came together. How did I learn how to get involved in real estate, and how did I become interested in it? That was primarily through reading. Back in 1994, 1995, when I was doing the landscaping thing, when you read magazines about business, there wasn't anything called the internet. There wasn't anything called crypto. It was all about investing in real estate and building big businesses. And so I set out to do both.
Wow. And this property, how long did you own it for? This 5-unit?
I actually still own it. I paid $262,000 for it in 2002. During the foreclosure crisis, it was probably worth as little as $75,000. And then now it's worth more than $500,000. Real estate comes and goes, but if you hold on, you should do well over time.
Yeah, I was involved during the '08 crisis. I started in 2001, and as long as I was able to hold on through that crisis, we saw the prices recover and do even better after that. And I guess similar to stocks, just because it goes down, just because COVID hits and everything goes down, don't sell. Keep it. When it comes to real estate, the longer you own it, usually the better you are. Most mistakes in real estate are corrected with time. Some of the more talented individuals are able to really eke out some equity and profit right away. But you don't have to be that talented to own property a long time and let it ride and, just watch the prices go up, whether it's inflation or just the values. It really changes. You're young, you own a piece of property. I'm assuming all your friends were landlords also at that time?
No, I was definitely the first one to do it. And a lot of my friends were smarter than me and never got involved in it. There's a lot of ways to make money, and being a landlord is only one of them. And it's one of the more challenging ones, but it's also one of the more rewarding ones. But no, I didn't have any friends doing anything like that. Everyone was focused on college and having a good time, going to football games and stuff like that. I did get into a group of some entrepreneurs that worked hard, but I've been a lone wolf a lot of the time.
Did you have a lot of people, your peer group or adults, parents telling you, what are you doing? Why are you buying real estate? It's toilets at 2 a.m., etc.
Yeah, so I grew up in a privileged environment. I grew up in Burns Park neighborhood of Ann Arbor, Michigan. It's up against University of Michigan. A lot of my parents' friends were professors at University of Michigan, so everyone was very well educated. We took education seriously, but there wasn't a focus on entrepreneurship and there wasn't a focus on business outside of my household. But in my household, my mom was a lawyer and my dad was a construction contractor. And so I did grow up in a bit of an entrepreneurial household, and there was a lot of conversations about work and money and saving money. My dad, he worked from 8 a.m., 7 a.m. till dinner time. Then he did the family time from like 5 p.m. to like 9 p.m. And then at 9 p.m., he'd often go back to the office or pull out a blueprint or a plan and work until midnight, 1 in the morning. So I saw that growing up. And then I also saw like the rewards of that too. So we could take, expensive vacations. We could buy boats and have a lake house. And, so that kind of got me interested in, okay, I see the people that don't work hard and what they achieve, and I see the people that do work hard and I see what they achieve, and I want to be one of those hard workers and, be able to do what I want. And so that kind of put me in the mindset of entrepreneurship and investing in real estate.
When you purchased your first property, you mentioned there was a vacant unit, you moved right in. Were you still cash flowing positively, even though you were living inside one of the units?
Well, I would have been if I had good tenants, but I had to immediately evict two of them. There was a reason this guy was trying to sell this property. You always find out why the seller is selling after you buy. You try to figure it out before you buy, of course, called due diligence, but sometimes you don't really find out until after you buy. And especially since I was 19 and this was the first property, I didn't have my due diligence dialed in, I'm sure. So I would have been a little bit, but it was a bumpy, first year or two. Plus, I renovated the unit I was in. I took down a wall to open it up, make it more modern. But it started cash flowing, really well after I moved on and had 5 tenants in there. And I've owned it for 24 years now, and I've done, I think, 3 or 4 cash out refinances on it. And so it's been a good investment.
Yeah, I could imagine. You have a lot of people who get into real estate and they struggle on the first deal, and sometimes just knocks them out of the game, and they're, wipe their hands and wash their hands, and they're, just done with real estate. When I purchased my first property, it was a single family home, and my goal was really to buy just one property, pay it off over 30 years. I had a 30-year mortgage on it. And when it's time to retire, it would be, some sort of secondary 401k that I could tap into. I could sell it. I wouldn't have to downgrade a primary home. And after a month or two of collecting rent, it really opened up. The numbers started clicking. I started looking at debt pay down and some rental, some cash flow. And I said to myself, why just one? Why not two? Why not three? And at that time, 2001, it was a little easier to buy properties, especially the 1 to 4s. Stated income, decent credit score. You could really get, 80, 90, sometimes 100% financing from the banks. And it really just allowed me to buy. Then learned about seller financing and seller seconds. That really catapulted me into quite a few properties. When 2008 hit, I didn't really get too affected because I had, fixed rate, fixed debt on it. I didn't have balloon payments due, and I was able to just really just keep going. I had some tenants move out, and maybe they were affected. But as far as me, I didn't really have too many issues in 2008. How long did it take you to buy a second property?
So I was working full time and had the investment. I bought a second property. It was a pornography store that had been seized by the city. So I bought it from the city. I bought that in 2003 or 4. So that was the second property I bought. I took on 2 investors into that deal, and then we partnered with the building owners to the east, and we combined 5 buildings into one, and we built 20 luxury lofts and 5 commercial spaces on the first floor. My dad was the contractor. I was the construction superintendent. I was there every day learning about how to do this and how to do construction, how to manage subcontractors. So that was the second property that I did. So every property I get is kind of untraditional in the beginning here. The third property I bought was a 30 unit. The fourth property and the fifth property was like a 6 unit and a 5 unit. And then the foreclosure crisis hit, and I bought a property a month basically for 3 years straight.
Foreclosure crisis in '07, '08 or '08,
Yeah.
'09?
Yeah. It hit in '08, '09 basically. And it hit where I live very, very, very hard. There were 3 landlords that lost over 75 properties to the banks
Wow.
in 1 month or 2 months. They were using fraudulent appraisals and had adjustable rate mortgages, and so that fell apart on them. And the banks put them all on the market at the same time. I was pretty much the only one that had cash and had the interest of buying these often pretty rough properties, so I was able to scoop them up without having like bidding wars.
When you purchased that second property, what was the structure you had set, if you could share with us, with the investors? Was it just an even split? Was it LP, GP? How'd you structure that?
Yeah, so the way I structure my what I call single asset entities, where I bring in investors, is everyone owns the percentage of the cash that they put in. So if we're raising 100,000, everybody puts in 25,000. They each own 25% of the entity. I charge a property management fee, maybe an asset management fee, plus we're going to do the construction. So I would make money that way. Another way to do it is if you're raising 100,000 and you don't have any money at all, but you've got a good deal, you could have your investors invest 100,000, but consider their equity worth 80,000 the day they invest it, and you carve out 20% for yourself because you're going to do all the work and put the deal together. And then there's lots of structures to splinter it out from there, and you can make it complicated and make it simpler. And then of course I also do real estate syndications, so we do that. We're the general partner and we have LPs in bigger deals.
Yeah, when I started, the first property I bought was $32,000, had a tenant inside, single family home, and I just gotten a 10% mortgage. Sorry, a 90% loan to value mortgage. I put down about $6,000 with down payment and closing costs. But after 2 or 3 properties, I started running out of money to put down, and I had this mentor slash investor who told me, bring me a deal. I'm going to lend you money at 8%, but I want 25% of the upside. So if you buy it for $100,000, you sell it for 150. You pay me, as long as my money's in the deal, you pay me, monthly on the money. Whether you sell or refinance, you pay me back, and I want 25% of the upside. He was generous to me, a mentor. He himself owned tons of properties without mortgages, and he was really like a cash guy. And I always had a lot of thanks to him. He helped me out, and for the most part, he was a sounding board anytime I had problems, questions, and he was really, really great. Are you still buying properties in cash these days, or are you buying them and getting debt on it right away? How are you buying properties?
Yeah, so I'm buying a property on Thursday. It's an 11,000 square foot office building. The purchase price is 750,000. I'm borrowing 500,000 from a credit union, putting down 250,000 cash. So that's about a 66% loan to value there on the loan. The interest rate is not nice, 7%, something like that. If interest rates were 3.4 and 3.6, what they were in 21 and 22, I'd probably try to borrow 80% of the purchase price. But that's kind of fluctuating. Apartment buildings in our area, it's not possible to get them to cash flow at 7% debt, 7.5% debt at what the sellers are asking. So, there's a lot of cash purchases out here, but I like to use my cash wisely and, buy as much as I can with the limited capital that I have. It's not very limited, but obviously it's limited eventually. And so we're able to do a lot of deals with the cash that we have.
Were you nervous about raising money from outsiders on your first deal or your second deal?
So I started a third-party property management business about 6 years before I took on any investors. So I had experience dealing with real estate owners that were relying on me to do a good job for their real estate. So I wasn't too nervous switching gears and taking on investors. Of the first deal that I did, it was a 14-unit office building. This was back in 2014, the very first deal I ever did with investors, except for that first deal back in 2002. Those were kind of like close friends. So I'm not sure they're consider them investors. I mean, there were investors, but they're also close friends. So 2014 was the next time I took money from investors, and these were people that weren't friends. They were strictly an investor relationship. There were 4 people in the deal. One of the guys immediately we recognized, like, oh, this isn't going to work out. So we bought him out, and then it was just the 3 of us that owned the deal. So I wasn't nervous, but when you work with one investor, you might get lucky and the guy's amazing. And, like you said, your mentor. If you work with 100 investors, you're going to have 90 that are amazing and 10 that give you a really hard time. And so you want to make sure you're spending your time on the people that are treating you appropriately and try to exit the relationships with the people that you're not getting along with. Even if you're doing well, it's just a numbers game. And that happens on the property management side too. Why isn't this property, cash flowing this much? I'd be like, well, because you didn't allocate money for your roof, you didn't allocate money for your hot water tank, and I had to use cash to replace that. And so some guys will be like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense, and some guys will be like, you're terrible. So it's just a numbers game, and you have to get used to it. People ask me, I want to start a property management company. And I ask them, well, do you want to ruin your life? Because it's not the nicest business to be into. There's a lot of challenges, both on the tenant side and the owner side. And you're kind of stuck in the middle as the property manager.
Talk to me about development. Have you ever done any ground up development?
I've never built anything. I am a value add apartment acquirer. I have purchased more than 130 apartment complexes of size that I consider like 50 units and above. So I've purchased more than 130 apartment complexes of 50 units above. Every single one of them, all 130, it was the exact same value add strategy. You buy a property that the seller is selling because it needs investment. You go in and make that investment. You renew the existing tenants on fair lease renewals. But as people naturally move out, you go in and you renovate those units, and then you bring them back on the market at market rent. So I've done that more than 130 times.
Do you ever have a tenant that you decide not to raise their rent when it comes to renewal?
Yeah, of course. I've been doing this for 22 years now. There's been several times where it's not appropriate to raise rents. So for instance, during COVID, rents spiked huge. And then in 2023, 2024, 2025, maybe you're already charging them a lot. And so you don't charge an increase. We also negotiate because we know that the way you make money in property management and real estate is to limit your turnovers. And so we don't want to lose a tenant for a couple of percentage points increase. So we'll negotiate with people.
Yeah, I have a multifamily property that I'm struggling with move outs and vacancies. And across the board on this property, we reach out to the tenant 90 days before the lease renewal. And we tell them that if they were to sign their lease in the next, 7 days or so, we will not raise them a penny. And, the goal to, like you said, reduce that turnover. The turnovers are killers. They really eat up the profit and the money, and they take up a lot of headspace with the vacancy, and it just becomes a real detriment to the bottom line. So I definitely agree with you on that.
Yeah, and let's say a tenant's giving you a hard time. He doesn't pay his rent on time. He abuses you. Offer him a lease renewal with an increase. If he signs, it's worth it. Take the abuse. If he doesn't, good. You'll renovate that unit. You'll bring it back out on the market, charge a slightly higher rent, get a better tenant. So there's lots of different ways to play with that.
What markets do you invest in? You mentioned you're from the Ann Arbor area. Where do you invest?
Yeah, so we have 5 offices across Michigan and 1 in Toledo, Ohio. And then I invest in other people's deals in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, and Florida. I like those states because of the population trends. And I also like those states because I don't think people are going to be able to live in Florida forever. It's going to get too hot and it's going to get uninsurable. People aren't going to want to move to Michigan, so they're going to move to Georgia and Alabama and Tennessee, South Carolina, North Carolina. So I think the trends, the positivity trends from a population standpoint will remain strong. And then I also do senior living through a partner. He has a fund and I'm a preferred investor there. And so I'll invest anywhere in the country with that. I'm pretty keen on senior living as long as you're doing it the right way. People are going to get really old really quick here.
When you invest in other multifamily deals, what's the structure typically? How's that set up?
Yeah, so the structure, I'm on my ninth and 10th real estate syndication. You can invest with us through bealcapital.com. The structure has been the same for all 10 of them. It's a 7% preferred return, split 70-30 after that, 70% to the investor, 30% to the sponsor. And then we, as the general partner, we charge a acquisition fee and a disposition fee if we buy and sell.
So on those deals in the Carolinas, you are as the GP?
I've been the GP in a couple of them, and I'm in the LP as a couple of them. And I think in the Carolinas, it's a 6% preferred.
Sometimes the preferred return can't be paid out, and I guess that accrues.
Yeah, we've done really well in the Carolinas because we bought with good debt at the right time. We have not purchased a property in the Carolinas in over 2 years now because of the interest rates and people not wanting to sell and the distress that people predicted not playing out. So these were deals we bought in 21, 22 that some of them doubled in value. We bought a $5 million property, sold it for $10 million just 3 months ago.
Wow. Any markets you stay away from, no matter what?
Just in Michigan, there's a city called Flint, city called Pontiac, and I don't invest usually in the city of Detroit. The credit scores, the financial literacy is not there, and so it's hard time. You could build a beautiful building and not be able to fill it because it's hard to find good residents. Hopefully that'll change over time, but that's the situation on the ground right now, and the courts in those cities have not recovered, so you're kind of defenseless.
Have you invested in these areas, made some mistakes, and that's why you stay away from it?
Yeah.
Detroit's definitely rough, and I know. I think the owner of was the Rockets, not the Rockets. I don't know, Dan Gilbert.
Yeah, I mean, if you have the type of capital that you can invest alongside Dan Gilbert and do nice projects like his, I'm sure you'll do fine. Most people, though, get attracted to the low real estate prices in the outer areas of Detroit, and then realize quickly it's kind of hard to get good residents in those areas for the most part. And also, like, theft and crime is a big problem.
I know you're from Michigan. What's your thoughts on investing in New York City or Los Angeles?
Yeah, so I think it's impossible. I wouldn't do it unless I had just unlimited cash,
Yeah.
I just don't see how you'd get a good return.
Yeah, I think New York is a big boy game where you might buy a building for $10 million. You'll be underwater every month for 30, 50 grand or whatever it is. But if you could hold on. Sometimes you could sell it for double in 5 years. So it's definitely a very capital intensive business, and the regulatory in those areas are just ridiculous. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I don't really invest in New York, but I'm born and raised and I still live here. But investing in New York is just something that does not appeal to me. I tried it in '03, '04, '05. I did well with the appreciation when I sold it, but the management was just too tough, too scary, and I felt like I wasn't in control.
Yeah, and also like getting work done would be very intimidating compared to like what we do out here. The stores are close by. You can park right outside the project. Like, labor's plentiful. Like, it would just be very intimidating from a lot of different angles. I do love New York City. I'm flying to New York City tomorrow for a real estate conference. I'm gonna spend 3 days in the city. I would absolutely love to live in the city someday, part time, have a condo there or something. I just don't see it from an investment perspective.
Got it. Yeah, New York's great to visit. Sometimes it's a good place to live. Going, we're going through a cold snap over here where we had a lot of snow with the rest of the country. But I got family and I got an infrastructure here, so I'm sort of stuck over here. But
Yeah.
it's not too bad, not too bad. But I wouldn't invest here in New York. A lot of people talk about their wins, and any big mistakes you had, like that really just changed, who you are, changed the nature of what you do. They could share.
Yeah, so the biggest mistake I've ever made is have investors in a deal where I did not purchase insurance. It was a vacant building and I was just starting the syndication and we were pulling investors into it and starting work on it, and the insurance quote came back, and because it was a vacant building, it was just astronomical, the cost to insure this building. I was a young person, naive, and an arsonist broke in and burned the entire building to the ground. And so we lost, almost everything in that deal. Insurance is definitely something you need to work full time on if you have a sizable portfolio. And so that's the biggest mistake that I've made in my career is not having proper insurance. And on the property management side, it's happened a couple of times where I've had to call a client, tell them their building's on fire, and they just start screaming. And I say, it's okay, it's going to be okay. And they're like, no, I don't have insurance on that property. And so I have a client relations person whose job it is to make sure our clients stay in compliance with their insurance. But it's still tricky because if their insurance is due every month, they could default every single month. So it's kind of hard to keep track of.
Yeah, I'm assuming these are cash owners and not no debt on it.
Yeah, so I didn't have debt on the property that I had burned to the ground, and the two big ones that stick in my mind, they had like hard money slash something weird. So the bank wasn't paying attention, or the lender wasn't paying attention.
Interesting. What do you do for fun outside of real estate?
A fish. I'm catching a fish in all 50 states. I've done 48 states so far. Alaska and Hawaii are the last two states. And then I have 3 daughters. I spend a ton of time with my daughters. And I'm the delivery guy. So tonight I'm going to go to the play practice and the basketball practice and all that type of stuff while my wife relaxes because she does everything else. So I'm just a delivery guy. So yeah, that's what I do.
Got it. Got it. You watch any good TV and good books?
I'm a big Netflix guy. I watch anything on Netflix. Books, I read real estate books primarily, business books primarily. I like biographies and autobiographies of like business legends too.
Any good ones you can recommend, or are they all good?
Snowball by Warren Buffett is the best one.
I was actually gonna say, I don't read too many biographies about business guys, but I did read Snowball.
Yeah.
I thought it was phenomenal, and
Yeah.
I sort of read it because I was somewhere, I was visiting for about a week, and they had some sort of library, and they had this book, so I took it, and I figured I would glance at it, and it was so amazing. It was great, and it was just interesting to hear about him and all that. Like, I feel like I know who he is at this point.
Yeah, anytime I go over to like a dinner party or anything like that, you'll find me in the person's library looking at their business books.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Stuart, it was great to have you on the show. I appreciate it. Tell everybody here how they could reach out to you. I'll put it in the show notes, any social medias, phone numbers, websites.
Yeah, so I'm Stewart Beal on Facebook. I respond to my Facebook messages. I'm Stewart Beal on LinkedIn. I have a virtual assistant who responds to my LinkedIn messages, but flags any that I should have a keen interest in. We are bealcapital.com. You can invest with us through bealcapital.com, and my email address is sbeal@gobeal.
It was great to have you on. This has been a nice. And if you have anybody who you think would be a good guest, please reach out to me or tell them to reach out to me, and we'll get them on. Stuart, it was an honor to have you on. I've been following your career. You're quite a legend, and I hope continued success.
All right. Thank you very much. It was a great time.
Thank you, Stuart.
All right. Bye.